Oh, hey. Thank you for the audio. We're just a few moments away from the head coach of the Villanova Wildcats, Jay Wright, joining us here in the main interview room. These reminders, if joining us in the main interview room, we ask that you please silence your cell phone. Please refrain from any flash photography. And please refrain from any video recording, including handheld cameras, mini cameras, and mobile phones. Unfortunately, we can't allow anyone to go live on your favorite social media platform while here in the main interview room. If you need satellite information, the gentleman and lady from Hammond Communications have it in the center of the room. Just ask for them there, and we have 4 microphone handlers. They're outstanding. They've been great all day and will be all week and weekend. If you have a question, just raise your hand, and we'll send a microphone to you. Coach Wright, in just a moment. Couple more. One coach, one player of the year, one president. Not in that order. I know you. I was trying to give you the grand introduction when you were standing over here, but I missed it. Big East legend John Fanta, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Sorry your intro wasn't as good as Fanta's. Sorry your intro wasn't as good as Fanta's. I just need to know where she's sitting. We're joined now by the head coach of the Villanova Wildcats, Jay Wright. Coach, would you like to begin with an opening statement? Then we'll take some questions.
Sure. We are thrilled to be here in San Antonio and fired up about this matchup. I'd also like to throw a shout out to a good friend, Jim O'Connell, who's not here, and it's just didn't see him at the Big East tournament, didn't see him here. It's not the same without him. We miss him. But we are fired up about this challenge. Kansas is really explosive team, a scary team. It should be a great game.
Coach, we're going to start on the left side, just to the right of the aisle, with Blair.
Blair Kirchhoff with the Kansas City Star. You're going to play your third straight Big 12 opponent, and in the first two, they had terrific point guards, as does Kansas. I'm just wondering if there's something about Devonte Graham that maybe separates him a little bit than those you've played, and just talk a little bit about the matchup between him and Jalen.
Yeah. It's incredible, the point guards in that league, and I feel like we have, they're probably the three best teams in the league, and we've probably taken a step up, with each team and point guard. They're all very close, but I think Devonte clearly is the best combination of scorer and distributor of probably any point guard. I think he and Jalen are the two best in the country. They both have the ability to take over a game scoring, and they both have the ability to set up their teammates and distribute to win a game. Great leaders, and you can tell their teammates really respect them.
All the way up front to the left.
Lindsay Schnell, USA Today, right here, Jay.
Hey, Liz.
Jalen is kind of an old school player. He loves to back people down, get him in the post, shot fakes really well. Reminds me a little bit of Andre Miller. I wonder if the first time you saw him, was he like that? Did he have that skill set, or is that something he's developed at Nova?
He was as complete a player as I've ever seen in high school. And I commented to our assistant watching him, I've never seen such a refined player in high school. So I think he's brought a lot. I think he's brought a lot of it to Villanova. The footwork he has in the post, he brought with him. He really did. I think what we did is probably utilize his post play a little bit more. But I'd have to say his dad did a great job with him, his high school coach. And we received a pretty finished product.
Right to the middle, Joe.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer. Jay, you recall you did not have your full roster from like early December till like mid-February, and I just wondered how you kept everything together during that time, and what were the improvements you saw once Phil came back and things were all whole once again?
I thought that our leadership, Phil Booth, Mikal Bridges, and Jalen, during that time, we had to make some adjustments, even game by game, when those guys were out. I thought their experience, their intelligence allowed us to change how we played. You know, there was a couple games we were playing with 7 guys, and we had to change on the fly. Those guys kept everybody on the floor in tune to what we were doing. We were able to, change things one day in between games when we had injuries because of those guys. I just thought the leadership and intelligence of those 3 were the key.
That same area, Dana.
Dana O'Neill at The Athletic. Jay, you talked earlier about how at the beginning of the season you weren't necessarily pleased with the team's defensive efforts, but obviously last weekend was pretty top-notch. How do you get a team to go from not being very good at defense to being that good in the span of a few weeks?
Not easy, and it took time. It takes time. It was a constant dialogue between the staff and the players about evaluating how we played in games. We were winning some games, just outscoring people, and trying to get the guys to understand that later in the season when you're playing better teams and the games are more meaningful, that's not going to get it done for us. And again, I go back to the leadership where Mikal and Jalen were having great years, and they could have been satisfied with, hey, I'm All-American, I'm getting my points, I'm not going to change and get this team to be focused on defense. And Phil Booth, who was probably the most focused on the area, was out and hurt. So when we got to work with the other guys and defensively, and when Phil came back, it was he had it. So he was an infusion that kind of finished it off for us because he was the intelligent one out there defensively that kept everybody together.
Coach, just to the right of the aisle, John.
John Fanta, Big East Digital Network. Talking about that leadership, did you see that kind of quality in Jalen even back when he was a freshman in the way that he took on the role that you put him in?
Definitely. I saw it in high school, and I saw it when he came in as a freshman. And I think the greatest challenge for him probably in his college career was learning how to take a back seat to Ryan Arcidiacono his freshman year. And not ego-wise, just playing-wise. He was used to being the guy that everybody looked to, being the guy that talked to everybody on the floor, but we had Ryan. And I think it was a great challenge for him. And I still say it was the key. One of the keys to us winning the championship was his ability to take on that role, because I knew how difficult it was for him. The next year was easier for him, being the point guard, balls in his hands, but he still had to play under Josh and Chris and Daryl. This year's probably been the easiest year for him.
In the back right, CL.
JCL Brown with the Field House. It's segueing off of a back seat. Phil Booth scores 20 in the national title game. Very easily could have been the MVP. How do you get him to, or how did you get him to kind of just believe in waiting his turn and being patient to where, it's kind of like we kind of forget about him on this year's team, but as you mentioned, he's an important cog.
Yeah. Phil is really he's really the glue on this team. Personality-wise, he lights up a room. Everybody on the team loves him. And then on the court, he's got an intelligence and experience level of respect that they all migrate to. And I really didn't have to do anything. It was amazing. His father played college basketball at Coppin State, and when we recruited him, he said, "Look, when he comes to you, you got him 4 years. You're not gonna hear from me. We'll be at the games, but he's yours." And after his freshman year, he scored, 20. He scored 20 in the championship game, and his freshman year he had a great year, and we lost to NC State. And he had a great game in that game, and I didn't play him in the end. I went with an older guy. Never heard a word from his dad. Never. And at the end of the year, I said to his dad, I said, "Man, you were right. You were at every game. I never heard from you." He has the old school parents that just say, "Hey, you go there, you commit, you earn your time, you fill your role on the team, and I think everybody on our team really benefits from that.
Coach in the center of the room.
Jay, Josh Verlin, City of Basketball Love. You got two freshmen, Colin and Dada, who've been playing key roles for you guys this year. What are you specifically saying to them about playing in this kind of atmosphere that since they've never been here before? And what do you need from them out of this game or potentially 2 games if you guys are going to get out of here with what you want?
Yeah, Dada and Colin obviously are a big part of our depth, big part. And they've got to, depending on the game, if we need to go smaller, Colin's really important. If we need to go bigger, like we did in the Texas Tech game, Dada's really important. And they've got to know it could be different in different games, and it could be different at different parts of the game. And that's easy to say, but it's hard when you're the player that has to be prepared. I thought Dada in the first half of Texas Tech game was amazing. And even when we could put Colin in at the end of the first half, he makes a great play defensively, great play offensively in the last play. Just being ready any possession at any time, that's the key for those two, and that's what we're always telling them, and they've been amazing.
Coach on the back left, Reed.
Coach, Reed Forgrave, CBS Sports. I know a lot of questions about Jalen and his leadership style, so I'm just going to put you on the spot. Is there one story about him, about the way that he's led this specific team that jumps out to you?
You know what, Reed, I can't think of one specifically, but I think towards the end of the year, there was a lot of talk about him possibly being Player of the Year and Trae Young being played. Trae Young was putting up numbers, and you gotta think a kid hears that. Now, I would talk to him about it and say, like, just keep playing your game, and he would say, I'm good. But there were games toward the end of the year where I actually had to say to him at the end of the game, hey, stay aggressive, keep looking to score, where you could tell at the end of games we had leads and he was just trying to get everybody else involved. He was almost going out of his way to show that he was playing for his teammates. And I remember specifically a game at Xavier where he had a shot at the end, he didn't take it, and he gave it to Eric Pascal for a dunk, and he really should have shot it. But I showed the team afterwards, I said, look at this kid. I said, if anybody had a chance of Player of the Year and you had that shot, to pass it up is really showing you how much he cares about his teammates. He's pretty. I think he went out of his way to show his teammates he was not interested in individual accolades this year.
3 in the front on the left. Let's start in the third row.
Coach Hayden, Wilkins, IU Sports Capital Journalism. Of course, it's rewarding to see your guys kind of develop on the court, but how much does it mean to you to see them develop off the court as well?
It's really what's most important to us, because we really believe that if they grow as men and they grow as students, it's really going to give them the best chance to be the best players they can be. Our guys want to be great players. They want to win championships. They want to go to the NBA. And what we try to teach them is, if you're only trying to be a good basketball player, you're not going to be the best basketball player you can be. You've got to care about what kind of student you are, what kind of person you are. And I think our guys understand that. And so we really spend probably more time in that area than we do on basketball, because the basketball part's easy. And we do take great pride in their development as men and as students.
In the second row, Coach, to Hoops.
Hoops is in the house. It's
Jay,
official.
how are you? Congratulations. Talk to me about Kansas and how much they've changed with the emergence of Malik Newman as a major scorer in the last 3 weeks.
It's amazing what Bill has done with this team. Azubuike playing really well early, getting hurt. You look at D'Souza coming in mid-year and developing him into this team, and keeping this team going and continuing to get better. And I think Newman's the final piece now towards the end of the year. And I think it's a year playing under Bill. He's become arguably as scary as Graham, and that's why they're here. That's why they're still playing, because Graham has been Graham, but everybody else is getting better and better at this time, and I think they're playing their best basketball.
All the way up front on the left.
Tom Keegan of the Lawrence Journal-World. I can't remember another player who redshirted, then becoming a projected lottery pick by his junior year, and I was wondering when you first recognized what you had in Bridges.
You know, I got to research that too. I got to see if that ever happened, because I don't remember any either. I figured you guys are good at that stuff. You might have. I count on my Philly guys here. Terry too. He knows. He come up with those stats for me. He's one of those kids when you go recruit him. When you do this with all your kids, you always envision, okay, what is the best he could be? He was about 175 pounds, long arms, and you just said, hey, if this kid fills out, if he gets stronger, if he's a good kid and he's coachable and he's patient, he could be a pro. I don't think we ever thought lottery pick, but the way he accepted his redshirt year and how hard he worked in his redshirt year, and then the way he started playing in his freshman year, we started saying, especially towards the end, if he continues at this pace, he could be a first-round pick. And I don't think we ever said lottery pick, but this year, during the year when he probably the Gonzaga game, you just said, wow, because lottery pick is really based on what the NBA guys think. Doesn't matter what we think. But they started talking about it. So when they started talking about it, that's when we realized.
Coach, all the way to the back on the left, Ralph.
Coach, Ralph Russo from the Associated Press. First of all, thank you for mentioning Ock.
Miss Ock, man.
My question is about transfers. Those rules are in the process of being changed. There's the thought that players will get at least a little more freedom. Maybe there will be a few less restrictions. Do you think that's a good thing? And generally speaking, do you look at transfers as a problem? In other words, is it a problem in college basketball, or is it just something that sort of, you have to sort of deal with?
I think it's something we're all going to have to learn to deal with. I really don't have the answers on it. We don't get involved in it a lot, so I don't think I know enough about it to give you an intelligent answer. But it is definitely something we got to deal with. Even if you're not taking transfers, everyone else is always putting it into your players' minds. So you're dealing with it. I mentioned Phil Booth. In his freshman year, he was a really good player and was coming off the bench, and it looked like his sophomore year he might be a sixth man. Most guys that good are going to say, "Hey, I'm going somewhere else to start." And most people are being told that, you should get out of there, as opposed to, hey, stick with it there. So we're all dealing with it. I think that's the best answer I could give you. And we're going to have to continue to deal with it.
On the right side, Eddie.
Hey, Coach. Eddie Pell's also with AP, also giving love to Ock. The Final Four bracket turned out kind of weird this year with 2 1 seeds here and other here. So aside from just the real life implications of that, do you ever think about any way that this thing could get reseeded at any point in the tournament so you didn't end up with this?
Someone asked our assistants about that, and they said, could you imagine, winning a game and thinking you get Radford the next game who we played, and all of a sudden, no, you're playing Kansas. I don't think you can do it, because the way you prepare, especially when you have the 2-game weekend, the way you prepare is you're looking at one coach is taking the current game and then 2 are taking the next. That would really throw you off if you had to try to figure out, what the seedings would be. I think it would become even more unfair, because somebody would, not be prepared or get shocked by a matchup. I don't think you can do it.
We have time for one more question for Coach Wright, if there is one. Let's go back up to the front on the left.
KJ, Colin told me that Jalen's the best post player on the team because he has the most post moves. Do you agree with that assessment?
Definitely, I do. We had a couple summers ago, we had a drill where we were practicing defending guards in the post. And when it was Jalen, so someone had to play offense in there. We just giving guys different chances. So we put Jalen in there, and everybody, coaches, started looking at each other like, whoa, his post moves are incredible. And so then after that, we were like, all right, we're going with this. We're using this. But then as he's continued to develop, he loves it, and he loves to work at it. And his footwork is incredible.
We'd like to thank Coach Wright for joining us here in
Thanks,
the main
Bob.
interview room. Coach, we'll see you in just a little bit.
Thanks, guys.